So, what I'm going to discuss today is the Age of Gnosis. I don't really have any notes for this, but given all the twittering that I do on Age of Gnosis and discussion that I had last night with my good friend Bruce, I think we'll give it a go so you can understand a better frame and replace modernity with Age of Gnosis. And hopefully from that perspective, you'll start to see a bunch of things in the world. So when I say Age of Gnosis, what is it that I mean? I am talking about all of the phenomena people would describe as post-enlightenment, modernity, maybe they'll call it postmodern, postmodern, all of these ways of describing the world and seem to have one thing in common. And that one thing is the Age of Gnosis. So at some point, we can argue about what point. I don't want to get into that here. There's a lot of different things you can identify, we'll say. We enter the Age of Gnosis. And what begins to happen is a not very subtle shift in how people are thinking about things. One way this manifests is fundamentalism. People start to think that the words that they're hearing, the language that is being used, the spoken language that's being used, we're going to exclude body language from this entirely, is we'll say the most important thing. And therefore the highest value. Okay. And then they're casting that as this mysterious thing called knowledge. Okay. So people will talk about things like, oh, I was, hanging out in this group and they gave me all of these tips for how to do something. And now I know how to do this thing. That's false. What you're doing is what you're told to do. Somebody gives you a tip. That's somebody telling you something. That's not you discovering anything on your own. If you want to be, say, truly autonomous, which is completely impossible, but if you want to be as autonomous as you can, you have to do the thing and learn it for yourself, however painful that may be. Now, this is obviously inefficient, and so I don't recommend doing this or trying to do this or anything because it's crazy, but it is the right way to think about knowledge. What knowledge isn't is something you read in a book. You read a book, you gain no knowledge. Zero. Absolutely none. Now, reading a book may motivate you and help to structure your activities in such a way that you can do things in the world and thus obtain knowledge, and it may even relate to the book. Who knows? But reading the book didn't do anything to you. It just wasted a bunch of time. And you may be able to use that to cultivate some action in yourself, but that's not the same as having acquired the knowledge simply by opening the book and reading it. And again, this manifests as a form of fundamentalism because what ultimately happens is because I have an interpretation of what I read and you have an interpretation of reading the same thing, and those interpretations aren't going to match exactly. When we prioritize the language, the propositions used to exposit, right, or talk about what we know in common or have in common, it doesn't work. You end up in fundamentalism, you end up in postmodernism, because ultimately, you could say the postmoderns were right, and I would say the only thing they were right about was so obvious everyone already knew it and experienced it directly. So sure, I guess it's like saying people breathe. Ooh, that's brilliant. Let's listen to this person who told me that people breathe, because again, my interpretation of the world, anything in the world, but particularly a text, is going to be slightly different from almost everybody else's, right? Determining if they are the same is impossible with propositions, technically, because we don't encounter propositions the same. We don't even use the same definitions for the same words, much less understand the same meanings from the same context from the same words, which of course would be impossible if you don't have the same definition. You're not gonna come to the same meaning. So this is why language is important for communication. It's not important for things that don't require communication, which is almost everything. And it's not important for certain types of communication. In the Age of Gnosis, we've lost this sense. And so you might hear the term propositional tyranny. That's due to the Age of Gnosis, where the propositions have become representative of, we'll say, the most valuable type of knowledge, and knowledge is the most valuable thing. Not your works, not your actions, not what you've cultivated, not what you've done, not the correspondence between your words and your actions, because the words always take precedent. And you'll notice that, right? You can say, this person broke the law, or this person was on drugs when they got arrested, or this person threw a brick through a window. And people will defend these things by saying they didn't know better, or by saying, well, what about these other factors? And it's like, well, I don't care about the socioeconomic driving force that you think made them take the bad action. I care about the bad action because I'm a pragmatist. And what else am I supposed to do? You can't observe socioeconomic forces if such things even exist. And when you talk about those phenomena, you talk about them, right, or you write about them, you put them way up here. And then everybody ignores the fact that, well, while you may be able to write a statistically significant engagement that maybe has some statistics to back it up that are even valid, which read Nassim Taleb, probably not, you're leaving out all the cases where it fails. And so in statistics, you're always talking about correlation, not causation. So you can draw a correlation between a socioeconomic condition and violence or drug use or whatever. That's not that hard. People have been doing that for decades, but it doesn't lead you to a solution because it doesn't talk about what drives the action. It just talks about a correlation. Now that correlation probably isn't the driver for the action. In the case of so-called socioeconomics, we know this isn't true experimentally. We've known since the late 1800s, this doesn't work, right? You change socioeconomic conditions of people and the crime rate doesn't go down at all. So, I mean, we know it's not true, like experimentally. Now, when you privilege the what has been tried, what has been done in the world, all of a sudden everything changes. You're out of the Age of Gnosis, at least partially, and you're like, oh, now this can be very jarring. A lot of people are going through this now, right? Where they're going through a form of it, right? Where they're suddenly looking at something like England and they're going, wow, they have an immigration problem and their crime rate's way up and there's murders all over the place. And London, at least I think it was last year, was the most murderous city per capita in the world. Didn't know that, did you? Right. It's not like they advertise it. So what's going on? They don't have guns. They had a lot of knives. And it turns out you can just beat people up with your hands too. And that can still kill them that way pretty easily. So it turns out that they've been privileging the knowledge from the newspapers, and now people are privileging knowledge from another source. Now, that knowledge source might be privileging their own personal experience over what you read in the newspapers, right? Because the newspapers can say, or any authority can say, well, your personal experience is anecdotal. Well, yeah, that's true, but science is based on anecdotes, by the way. So I don't know why people use that. I'm like, are you trying to invalidate my experience? Because that's what you're saying you're doing. If you say, oh, well, it's only when somebody tells a story and not something that they experienced, you're trying to invalidate the story of someone's experience that they told me. Are you saying I shouldn't believe them? Or are you just saying that science, which is a bunch of propositions, theoretically at least arrived at logically, reasonably, and rationally, overrides personal experience because statistics? Where are we going? And this is the problem with the Age of Gnosis. It privileges not story per se, or maybe some types of stories, but it privileges propositions as the highest value to determine the world, right? Overriding your personal experience. So I know what a man is and what a woman is. I don't need science to tell me. I am totally not required. I don't need someone to use science to justify why they should be called a certain thing according to them. Because I can say, well, you're doing this on your own authority. And you may be appealing to another authority to do that. But what's happening is you're making the claim. And in some cases, other people are making a claim on their behalf. but they're accepting it. And like, I can see that. And I go, well, that's really suspicious because they're not cooperating at that point. They're telling you what to do. They're not cooperating. And they used the other techniques too, but the Age of Gnosis in particular, like my pronouns are, okay, you don't get to dictate my pronouns, the pronouns that I'm using ever. And if you don't like that, you're going to have to use physical force to fix it. That's just the way it is. Now, that's not going to go well for you, but hey, you do you, right? You're not going to tell me you need to do this. That's tyrannical. And maybe a little tyranny is required sometimes, but you're also claiming an authority over me that you don't have because I never met you. Because if we knew each other and you wanted to be called something different, there's a negotiation that can be involved there. And maybe the negotiation is I'll never talk to you again, because that's happened to me several times. Like I've had people online who I met online and they went a little nuts and they said, you must call me this. I don't know, I ain't calling you that. Sorry, bro. And that was the last time I ever talked to them. That happens. That's the negotiation though. Negotiation isn't they come back to me and say, no. You will always refer to me this way from now on, whether I'm in your presence or not. Like that's not a negotiation. That's somebody who hasn't been punched in the face enough, but clearly needs to be maybe, but it's not a negotiation. And you can't see that in the Age of Gnosis. Yeah, in the Age of Gnosis, because we're privileging knowledge as propositions over actions in the world. Are you a woman? Can you have a baby? If you can't have a baby, I got questions, right? If you can't have a baby but for a medical condition, maybe you're still a woman, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. Everyone's got their things. But if you got the wrong parts, or you tried to get the right parts through surgical manipulation, I'm sorry. You can call yourself whatever you want, and I will continue to call you whatever I want, and you'll continue to suffer if you choose to make it into a suffering rather than a negotiation. Doesn't bother me at all, actually. It annoys me a little bit, but it doesn't bother me the way it's going to bother you. But you did that to yourself. I didn't do that to you. That's the difference. When you're stuck in the Age of Gnosis, it's very easy. And this is the point of the Age of Gnosis, to some extent, to slip into your own personal, private perspective. And then you're in the imaginal realm of fantasy. And then you're ensconced in a fantasy. And that's why the Age of Gnosis is very prone to video game reality thinking, where people think life is a video game and there's all sorts of side effects to this. And I'll do more video game videos, although I have some here. I'll do more. I'll have a whole playlist of those video game reality things. You tend to think that life should already be set up to cater to your whim. Playing video games you do on a whim. Now, not everything you do in a video game is on your whim, but engaging in it is. And so you've already bought into the fantasies. This is always where people miss things. I'm like, did you already buy into the fantasy? And then you're going, well, the fantasy is real because I already bought in. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, if you already bought in, it's real to you. Sure, I get that. That real to you and real are not the same thing, though. All fantasies are real to you. It's the way you know they're fantasies is because we outsource our sanity, is other people don't also experience those things in the way that you experience them. So if I drop acid and go to a Pink Floyd concert or whatever, that I'm not having the same experience as all the people that didn't drop acid and went to the same concert. That's for sure. They're having a personal private experience that's, we'll say, enhanced or distorted, or however you want to look at it, by a chemical. That could be good, that could be bad, I guess, although it's definitely bad. But that happened, right? And so it's not the same experience. But in the Age of Gnosis, you could say, oh, well, we both went to the concert. And we both saw the same band at the same place in the same time. And so we had the same experience. Like, whoa. Now you're privileging these propositions about the world over what may have happened in the world. Right. Now, maybe you went to the concert and had a good time, and I went to the concert and had a terrible time. But if we both went to the concert and had the same experience, then that overrides my personal private experience in favor of a generic, abstract experience expressed in propositions. Now, the trick with propositions is You can drill them down, you can abstract them up, or you can change their perspective. And that makes for a very strange world, because you can express things truthfully while leaving out the relevant parts. So we both went to the concert. I had a terrible time. Somebody else did not. They had a great time. If that additional information, or those additional propositions, aren't expressed, very different image of what happened in the world. And that's the problem. So I could say, oh, I read Plato's Republic. Okay? And somebody else can say, I read Plato's Republic. And I can say the allegory of the cave, as stated by nearly everybody online nowadays, is a lie. In fact, I've done just that. And I bring the goods to show you how that is true and must be true. And somebody else will go, no, the cave is definitely about breaking free from some tyrannical system. And I'm like, okay, but it's definitely not. And Plato says it's not explicitly. So there's that. But people can insist over and over again. And repetition, whether you like it or not, is a very powerful force. You can hate repetition all day long. Repetition is going to happen to you either externally or internally or both without you realizing it. And so you will become an NPC and you will become enchanted in a way by the Age of Gnosis, because you'll be bombarded by a lie over and over and over again. And you just get mentally exhausted or cognitively overloaded. And then you're all done, right? So that is really important to realize. This Age of Gnosis has all these knock-on effects, and I'm just scratching the surface, right? Anything anybody blames on the Enlightenment, or anything anyone blames on postmodernism, anything that anyone blames on modernity, these are all better understood and easier to understand when you think about them in terms of the Age of Gnosis, where knowledge is mere propositions and the highest value. By the way, no knowledge is propositional at all. That's just false. If you want to understand more about a model for knowledge, I have one right here in this video. You can check that out. Hopefully that will help you to see better what's going on once you sort of understand how, we'll say, maybe it's the basics of cognition, but the basics of how we think. And then at some point, I'll get up the other videos of the additional models that we have for thinking and how that all hangs together. Sort of focused on one and drop the others. We have the material, so I'll try to get that out to you. In the meantime, we're trying to boost the channel. We're going through a rebrand. Hopefully everything will be done soon and we can make this a little bit more well-known so that people can start to think and see in the world this Age of Gnosis problem. And then maybe we can get down to actually dealing with it rather than arguing about metacrises and who's to blame for what and whether or not the Orthodox Church is going to save the world or whatever nonsense it is this week, or all of these weird cults that are popping up with a lot of cover from the science people, right? It's another pattern that you see. A lot of people are appealing to the rogue scientists, the Jordan Petersons of the world. I love Jordan Peterson, did a lot of great work, but also rogue scientists, John Vervaeke, and other rogues, like rogue artists like Jonathan Bijot. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them or their work, but they are being used as cover, as authority, as justification for people who are starting cults. We've already seen some of this stuff pop up in various places. People got uncomfortable. Things have shut down in some cases. Good for them. But also, there's more stuff every day, basically. It's the internet. Things spread fast. And velocity is very high right now. So with that, because I understand your attention is under bombardment and the velocity is very, very high, and you think you need to keep track of more stuff, Age of Gnosis, in order to know what's going on, and I assure you nothing could be further from the truth, I really do appreciate that you've given this video your time and attention.